For all the latest news and analysis from every UCF sport, visit blackandgoldbanneret.com, your home for the UCF Knights on SB Nation. We bring you all the latest news and in-depth analysis from across Knight Nation, from football and hoops to golf and tennis. If you want to stay on top of all things UCF, visit blackandgoldbanneret.com, powered by SB Nation. This is the KnightShift podcast, powered by Black and Gold Banneret, your home for news and analysis from all UCF Knight sports. The KnightShift starts now.
Greetings here on KnightShift. Eric Lopez talking to you from Oklahoma City, alongside Bryson Turner, back. We'll call it the home studios here, Bryson. We're going to talk some Big 12 softball preview with UCF, who will begin the Big 12 softball championships from their version on Wednesday night when they take on Utah, 7 versus 10. That'll be the first of 3 games on Wednesday. Of course, the Big 12 championships, a single elimination throughout the week with the championship game on Saturday at noon. Bryson, it's a fun time because last year we did this, and there was a lot of questions about whether UCF would make the tournament or not. That is not the case this year, is it?
No, it is not. UCF comes into this tournament ranked 29 in the RPI rankings. That is thanks to plenty of wins against some top opponents, like a series win against Arizona State, a win at home against number 3 Florida, and just an absolutely well done schedule from Coach Cindy Ball Malone to help this young team get to the Big 12 tournament without having to worry about their potential placement in the NCAA tournament. It's just a matter now of where are they going to end up, and can their performance in the Big 12 tournament maybe help their case for a better position.
No doubt about that. And we'll get to that at the end, but let's just kind of highlight this team, Bryson. 32 wins as they get into the Big 12 championship with a very young roster. Isabella Vega, who won every award you can imagine on Tuesday, individual award, winning the NFCA Pitcher of the Week, winning Big 12 Freshman of the Week, winning Big 12 Pitcher of the Week. She'll likely be all conference at a minimum with the Big 12 awards come out, first teamer there. But she's been tremendous, and this young freshman class has been tremendous. You look at Beth Damon, you look at Izzy Mertez on the offensive end, freshman-wise. They've been stepping up, Bryson. And here's a team, man, that's got to me, you come into this week in Oklahoma City, you're playing loose, man. This is fun. Like, I remember last year, the team was on the bubble. You're like, man, you need to win this game against Baylor. If you don't, and then you lost a 1-run game, what does that mean? What's going to happen? I don't sense that this year, Bryson. And I think that's the exciting thing about this team is the energy and the positive levels right now is at a very positive mindset for this team.
Absolutely, Jeff. Eric, man, when I'm thinking of there. So this team is very interesting to me, especially from an offensive standpoint, because this is a team that I think is very prone to their momentum. If they are not having a good game, then odds are they're not going to have a good game. But as soon as they can turn momentum into their favor, good luck stopping them. We saw that against Stetson. We saw that against Kansas as well. So I don't think you can count out the Knights in any game that they're in. It's just a matter of, can they swing momentum on their side if they need to during a game or not. This last weekend proved that they can do that, but can they do it against the likes of other Big 12 softball teams that are in a higher position in the conference? Kansas goes into this tournament at the number 9 seed, but should they win their first round, they'd have a date with Arizona in store.
Yeah, let's go. I'm going to go quickly through the Big 12. The top seed is Texas Tech. They're the regular season champions. They are led by Nyjah Kennedy, the best pitch, the reigning national player of the year for Texas Tech. Of course, came from Stanford. They're the favorites. You got the Arizona's the 2 seed in this tournament. They get a bye there. And, of course, you've got the 3 seed, Iowa State. The surprise from the Big 12 is a 3 seed with the 4 seed coming up here. Interesting. You got Oklahoma State and Arizona State in a matchup here to 4 versus 5. You got BYU's a 6 a 6 seed there, and it should be fascinating to see if they can make a run. And then, of course, you got UCF's as 7. Baylor and Kansas will be the first game of the tournament, 8 versus 9. And then Houston will be the 11 seed in the last one there, with the 10 seed being Utah there. All right, Bryson, what questions you got?
Well, let's go ahead and talk about this. So the way that this Big 12 tournament draw has shaken out, did UCF get in a favorable draw with the side of the bracket that they're on? For viewers' benefit, the side of the bracket includes number 10 seed Utah, number 2 seed Arizona, number 11 seed Houston, number 6 seed Baylor, and 3 seed Iowa State.
Well, on paper, you got a team in Utah that's had a tough year. Those 2 teams have not played at all. It could go either way on that. The winner gets Arizona. UCF played Arizona early in the year in Arizona. UCF won the series 2 out of 3. That was the first Big 12 series of the year. I don't know if there's a big advantage either way. I think these teams are different. I think this UCF team's a lot different now than it was, say, 2 months ago. So I don't know. It's not an easy draw. I'm not going to say, especially if you get past Utah, you got to play Arizona, who's going to have a day's rest. I don't think it's an easy draw, but UCF should have confidence against Arizona since she won the series earlier. But you got to get past Utah first. And Bryson, I think that's going to be a key, is which UCF team shows up. In particular, interesting to see what Coach Paul Malone does from a pitching standpoint. Does Vega start on Wednesday? Does Felton start on Wednesday? Do you see the other one come in relief, split in half? I think those are questions that will be interesting to see what they do against Utah.
Well, the Utes ranked 10th in the Big 12 in pitching with a 4.97 team ERA, while they're last in batting average at 268. So this will be an interesting question: is who do you think Ball Malone could throw in that game if she wants to save Vega and Felton? Because aside from those two, it's been a bit of a mixed bag from this Knights pitching staff this season.
No question. I think she will start one of those two, either Vega or Felt. I just think in this stage, I think that's one of the reasons she started different people in the last couple of weeks. In that, last Sunday, for example, I don't know if she does that here against Utah. I could see somebody coming in relief, but I think you'll see one of them start the Utah game. I really do, and I think you see one start. Whoever does not start the Utah game, hopefully you don't have to use them in the Utah game and save them for the Arizona game. Does that make sense? And I think that's kind of be the game plan, I think, that they hope to execute.
In that case, then, do you think that at a certain point, do you think that this team will rely on Isabella Vega the rest of the way, kind of like they did with Sarah Willis a couple of years ago in the American, when she just blazed through the entire tournament? Obviously, this is a different conference for sure, but do you think that we could see Vega pitch in a lot of innings this weekend?
I don't think so. I think she will split with Felton. I really do. I could see. Now, again, circumstances will dictate some of that stuff. But I think you'll see both pitchers in a minimum. Don't be surprised. You remember, Bryson, back earlier in the season, in fact, the Arizona series, Vega started, Felton closed, brought her in relief in high leverage. I could see that playing out more so than, you talked about Sarah Willis. She literally started every game, pitched almost every inning. I don't see that this week. Not with the regionals on the coming up.
Arizona is by far and away leading the Big 12 in batting average this season at 352. For comparisons, Texas Tech is in second at 322. Considering that the last time UCF faced Arizona was the beginning of the conference season, what from the rest of Arizona's season do you see that maybe makes this matchup, should UCF advance after Utah, be different than the last time these two teams faced?
I mean, they have the best offense in the Big 12. They got a great outfield with Shockey and Dakota Kennedy, who's healthy now. Altmaier's a great outfielder. You got Devin Netz, who I think will win Big 12 Player of the Year. They're explosive. They're dynamic. They're a tough team. The good news if you're UCF is you beat them in their backyard, winning 2 out of 3. You were able to win a slugfest with them. So if you can do that, you can compete. But to me, Arizona's lineup is very good. And you got that's not including Stewart, the transfer from Washington. We just won D1 Player of the Week. They're loaded. They're one of the favorites for a reason in this Big 12 tournament.
Who would you say is going to be the key for UCF offensively? Because they're the ones that have kind of been subject to momentum shifts over the course of this season. So who's going to be the biggest key for UCF offensively?
I think it's got to be Aubrey Evans. Aubrey Evans, when she's clicking, they're clicking, right? And there's not an accident that they hit her in the leadoff spot. I mean, she's got, 9 home runs this year, career high. She seems to start the comebacks, had the big hits over the weekend in Lawrence. I think it starts with her. But, another name I'll give you, Stormy Kalsonik. She had a tough slump during the middle of the year, and they often struggled. And she's really picked it up the last 2 weeks, and I think you've seen that as a result with this offense. She's a senior. She's veteran. I think that's a name to watch. She's a key wild card for UCF. If she has a good game, I like UCF's chances if she has a good game to have a shot here to make a run at this tournament.
What do you do with the catching position? Because as you've said, Beth Damon has been a very great power hitter for this program. But as of late, Kylie Straught, we already know that she is a very good defensive catcher. But she has shown recently that she can play offense as well. So what do you do if you're Coach Ball Malone at the catching position this week?
Well, I think it's not even the question at catching, but more so about the catcher in the DP spot. So, like, for example, they could play, if they decide they want to play Kylie at catcher, they can move Beth to DP. They could also do a situation where they bring Kylie off the bench and move Beth to DP. Later in the game, defensive replacement. Kendall Yarnell hit the pinch hit 3-run homer against Kansas. Do they start her at the DP spot? All of a sudden they got some options here, and I think it'll be matchup related, determined based on numbers they have. But I think that's what will make them decide that. But I think Beth Damon's going to be in the lineup. There's no question Beth Damon's going to be in the middle of the lineup. The question is she in there as a DP? Is she going to be there as a catcher? And maybe they bring in Kylie off the bench late in the ball game to be a defensive replacement. That remains to be seen. That might be dictated by matchups. But all of a sudden, they got some options there, and I think that'll be one of the things to watch, starting with the Utah game.
Who's a night that people might be overlooking that could end up being the key to a successful tournament for UCF?
Overlooked. Probably an easy Mertez. Coach Ball Malone mentioned to me during before the Oklahoma State series, you've had stretches where Mertez was hot, Damon wasn't. You had stretches when Damon was hot, Izzy wasn't. I think recently now you're starting to see both of them click, and I don't think that's an accident that the offense has really stepped into a different level. But Izzy could be another one that – and I'll throw in Sierra Humphreys, who all of a sudden has become kind of under the radar a little bit, right? Because Aubrey's had a big boom and mentioned Beth Damon and stuff. I think Humphreys and Mertez are two keys for this team to get on base in Humphreys' case. And then in Izzy's case, just drives them in. And I think that's two names. Izzy, I think, is one that's probably under the radar a little bit because of the attention that Isabella Vega is getting in the circle from a freshman standpoint, as well as Beth Damon. But I think Izzy is every bit as good, and I think that's a name to watch.
Humphreys, by the way, has a 371 batting average coming into this Big 12 tournament. That's 10th in the Big 12. It leads the team by a long shot. For reference, Izzy Mertez is hitting 315 so far with this season. By
the way, that 371, I want to say that 371 puts her like top 5 all-time single season, maybe top 6 range for UCF softball. I know she's been right around that area throughout the year. Stephanie Best has the school record at like 440 something. She's not going to break that, but I want to say that's top 5, top 6, 7 range all time in a single season, very quietly for Sierra Humphreys.
I am currently fact checking that as we speak. Talk about Izzy Mertez, though you mentioned her. I mean, 16 doubles this year. I mean, you talk about quiet.
That's 2 away from Aubrey Evans' record in her freshman year in 23. That's a good stat by you. bringing up to 16 doubles, because that's kind of under the radar. I think Aubrey had 18 and 23 when she broke the record. So that could be something to watch this weekend in Oklahoma City, and even do the regionals next week.
So I just saw the single season batting average record. Sierra Humphreys is 371, is hovering just 100th of a point above Willow Kalinin from 2017.
Willow Kalinin, yeah.
Kalinin, yes. Yes. So that's fourth place all time. So very close to that. This is a higher batting average than even Jada Cody's 2022, or Janisha Rose 2024 from last year.
Right now, 371 puts her where?
371 puts her fourth.
There you go, top five.
Like just ahead of Kalinin. So you have
Stephanie Best. I think Brienne Javier in there, 385, something like that, or is it all Stephanie?
Yes, 2008 Brienne Javier 385, and then Stephanie Best has the top two in the 400s.
There you go.
As far as the doubles goes, Izzy is currently in a tie with a bunch of different Knights at 16. Only Aubrey's 18 doubles season in 2023 is higher than her at this juncture. So there is a certain possibility for that to happen this time around. Something that I've kind of forgotten that I want to get your thoughts on. Coco Jaimez and Maddie Simon. The two of them have seemed more of a defensive, because they're batting right now 212 and 198. They've had their moments for sure, especially Maddie. But what do you think about what they need to do this weekend to help this Knights team get far?
Well, play solid defense. To your point, Coco will be their defensive second baseman. Although her bat's starting to come around. She had a big 2 RBI, I believe, hit that tied one of the Kansas games. I want to say it was Saturday, maybe, or Sunday. I forget which one. But her bat's coming around. And then Maddie Simon, something to keep in mind about Maddie. She hit a home run in the Kansas series. She is the only UCF player that could say she played in this field at the College World Series. When she was at Oregon State, they made the World Series back in 2022. So she's familiar with this setting. I wonder if that would remember what was her best weekend this year, series-wise, from an offensive input standpoint. Which one was it?
I want to say Arizona.
It was. Remember, she made the great catch and she hit awesome offensively. Why? I think because she was familiar with that setting, because she played there with Oregon State, Pac-12. So I think Maddie might. We'll see. I'm curious to see if she has a good tournament this week, being that she did play here at the World Series with Oregon State.
Of course, you are very, very, very keyed in with how this team had their struggles during the kind of that mid-March period, even a little bit, more of that March period. So what would you say is the biggest switch that you've seen in the team from then, when they were, getting swept by Iowa State, Baylor, all that, to now where they're upsetting, Kansas and getting
not upset. Right, they're playing much better. Well, first of all, their offense has come to life. I think, remember, we don't know what this offense. Remember, there was all that talk early in the year how they have no power. Remember that? And all of a sudden now they found power. And listen, I think the turn. They had Iowa State was a low moment. I think they had a lot of heart-to-heart talks there. And they had a team bonding moment. I think they went over to Stephanie Best's place, the All-UCF Hall of Famer. And the next game, they shut out Florida. And they started playing a lot better. And then the game you were at, Bryson, in DeLand, it will go down in history as one of the greatest UCF comeback of all time. Down 11-0 in the third inning to come back and win that game, 14-13. They haven't looked back since offensively. And I think that moment, when you're in a moment like that, when you share an experience like that, man, that's a bonding moment that you don't go back to. And I wonder, they've been riding high since then. They won 5, they swept Kansas, won the series against Houston. If they lose that Stetson game, are we having a different conversation? I don't know, but they overcame that. And I think that's a credit to these players that they've overcome the highs, the lows, and bounced back from the highs. With a young team, sometimes that doesn't happen. But a credit to them. And that's why I think, and I've noticed too, Bryce, a lot of fans have really appreciated that. I was pretty taken away by the social media reactions over the Stetson game, but then especially during the Kansas series and the 2 comeback wins. People get galvanized by that, and I think people sense that this team is leaving it on the field, and maybe it's not perfect, but they are leaving it on the field. Whereas early in the year, they're trying to fill themselves out. You didn't get a sense where they're at. Maybe they were tentative. I don't sense that as much anymore, and I think that's why this is a different team and a team that's clicking at the right time.
2 players that have made big impacts off the bench for this Knight squad this season, Kendall Yarnell and Taylor Killiman. Of course, as you mentioned earlier, Kendall Yarnell had that big go-ahead homer against Kansas. Do you think that momentum will carry them into more playing time here, or how do you think Coach Ballmalone is going to utilize players like that off the bench for in the?
I know they love Yarnell off the bench. They love Yarnell off the bench. I think she leads the Big 12 in pinch hits. Obviously, had the pinch hit 3-run homer. I could see her spot starter. I think everybody knows their roles a little bit now. That's the thing. Whereas early in the year, maybe they weren't sure. Now they do, and I think I do get a sense that it's a much more together team than it was maybe 2 months ago, which makes sense, right? Like you've been together long enough and you've had the highs and lows, you're going to bond over that. And that was the thing, right? When you have the low moments that they have, that could separate you and divide you. That did not happen here. And it's a credit to everybody involved. And so I would say I think everybody's going to have a role, to answer your question. And I think they know their roles by now.
Well, now since we've examined this UCF team, I want to get and ask you about this Utah team that they're going to have to go against here. Their ace pitcher, from what I can see Haley Mastretti, it leads their ERA at 3.83, 17th in the Big 12. What do you think that they're going to throw her for this one, and what does this UCF offense need to do in order to hit off her?
Jump on them early. Utah's this was a young team too. Utah's very young. They replaced a lot, especially in the circle. I think they did not return any innings pitched at the D1 level this year from their pitching staff. So they had to start over basically on the pitching staff. And I think it's shown they've had their lumps, taken their lumps. They're capable of scoring runs. They've blown a lot of leads. Their record, that's why the record is what it is. They haven't held on to leads because of their pitching staff. So, but if you're UCF, you can't keep getting yourself trailing. You got to bounce on them early, so give you some options from a pitching standpoint. I'll be curious to see how both teams come out. Will they be confident, aggressive? Will they be tentative because of the state? Sometimes players overthink this stuff about the conference tournament. So it's a single elimination. But come out and be aggressive. Don't be tentative and wait, because you don't want to give Utah confidence and take a lead early. That's for sure.
Arizona has two pitchers in the top 5 of the Big 12 right now in ERA, Devin Netz and Miranda Stoddard. Who do you think they would throw against a UCF team should they make it through Utah?
It's a good question. They both pitched against UCF early in the year. I think they'll go Nets, who I expect to win Big 12 Player of the Year. It'll be out by the time maybe people watch this, but that would be my pick. I would assume Nets. And to me, she's a fantastic two-way player. And I think she's been waiting for this moment. She missed all of last year. And I think I would say she goes the first game. But am I 100% sure? No, but that'd be my guess.
Now, UCF has not faced Utah during the regular season this time around. Are they the only one, or are there a couple of other teams?
Tech's the other one. There's 2 teams you don't play in the Big 12. It was Utah and Texas Tech. So UCF did not see NYSHA. That will change next year because UCF, from what I understand, Texas Tech will be coming to UCF actually, part of the Big 12 schedule. So if NYSHA's back with Texas Tech, that could be a headliner. An interesting connection from the Utah standpoint. One of their full-time assistants, Kaya Gibson, Bryson, was on the UCF staff with Cindy Ball-Malone back as early as the 2022 team that made it to the Super Regionals. She was a volunteer coach then, was a volunteer coach up until 23. and then she got the job at Utah. So there's a little family connection, a coaching connection to Coach Paul Malone from a storyline standpoint. Also, Utah's pitching coach is former Sooner Paige Parker, who won 2 national titles. Of course, Shannon Sale, assistant at UCF, won a national title with Oklahoma in 2021. So you're going to hear about those Oklahoma ties here as they're both coaching in Oklahoma City.
Now, so Texas Tech is the number 1 seed for this Big 12 tournament. So you mean to tell me, Eric, for how tough Coach Cindy Ball Malone scheduled this season, they ended up not playing the number 1 seed in the Big 12 tournament?
Ironic, right? It's ironic.
What is it about this Red Raiders team? Say UCF makes a run to the championship and they face the Red Raiders. What makes the Red Raiders such a dangerous team in this tournament?
They have the best pitcher in the conference. They have the best pitcher maybe in the sport in Nyjah Kennedy. Of course, everybody knows about her NIL deal with $1 million to go to Texas Tech. She helps Texas Tech win their first ever Big 12 championship. They're in a position where I think if they win the Big 12, there'll be a lock to host a regional. They might host anyway. But she's special. She's electric. She's hard to hit. And they've got some good talented position players offensively. They've been a little inconsistent, I think, than they would like offensively. But when you've got the best player, arguably in college softball, the reigning national player of the year, you go, especially in the circle at Nyjah Kennedy, you've got a chance to win games, and that's why she's who she is. The interesting thing is they've got a tough draw because they got to play the winner of Baylor, Kansas. But then potentially they're going to play either Oklahoma State or Arizona State, who both have aces of their own. Oklahoma State with Ruby Malin, they figure to have a crowd advantage here. And then you've got Arizona State with Kinsey Brown. So you talk about 3 aces. They're all on that side of the bracket. So they got a tough draw. Texas Tech may not make it to the championship game. Who knows? Oklahoma State, there's some urgency there. They need to probably win the Big 12 tournament to have a chance to host. So it's going to be a fascinating Big 12 tournament from that standpoint. But obviously, Nyjah Kennedy is one of the stars of the sport, and that's what makes him so good.
Who would you say is the dark horse of this tournament?
Some would say UCF is a 7 seed. I would tell you also BYU's a 6 seed. They open with Houston. They need to win that. They're on the bubble for the NCAA tournament. They get Iowa State, who's the 3 seed. There could be some wackiness between those 3 teams. One of those 3 teams will be in the semifinal, and it could be BYU. I would pick BYU to get to the semis right now. And that could be UCF's opponent, right? If they were to upset Arizona. Right? Think about this, Bryce. A big if, I get it. But if UCF were to upset Arizona, let's say they beat Utah, beat Arizona, your UCF would then get Iowa State, BYU, or Houston. They won the series against both BYU and they won the series against Houston. They were swept by Iowa State, but I think this is a different UCF team than the UCF team that Iowa State played back in March in Orlando. So I actually think if UCF can somehow get past Arizona, I love their draw to get to the championship game because I think they're capable of beating all those 3 teams. But I think BYU is a dark horse for absolutely would not shock me if a BYU could get to a final. If you're like, whoa, I can't believe that team got to a final, I think BYU could be that team as well.
Now, UCF is 29 in the RPI. We know their place in the NCAA tournament is obviously cemented at this point, but obviously, aside from pride in wanting to win a conference tournament, in what world could UCF improve their stock enough? Because let me see. I think it's 13 spots from 29 to 16. So in what world, what would UCF need to do if they wanted to bring another regional to Orlando?
Win the Big 12 tournament, then you're in the conversation. Win the Big 12 tournament, then you're in the conversation. Okay. Simple as that. Outside of that, that's pretty much where that.
How likely is it? Because you talk about wacky. What is the possibility here that this tournament ends up descending into chaos?
Well, the way the Big 12's gone, actually pretty high. It's been a very unpredictable league. I would argue it's the most unpredictable league of the Power 4 conferences in softball. So actually not – Iowa State, nobody saw Iowa State finishing 3rd in the Big 12. They were picked next to last in the preseason. So they're the perfect example of that. So chaos is possible here. I don't think it's crazy from that standpoint. So, but as far as what UCF's playing for, you're playing for history. They're trying to win their first Big 12 tournament game. Okay, that's one thing. Want to get check mark in there. You try to make a deep run. You're trying to win a conference tournament. You're trying to lock up a 2 seed. Okay, in the NCAA tournament, I think if you win a couple of games here, you're pretty much a lock to be a 2 seed. Whether you play in Gainesville, whether you play in Tallahassee, or you get shipped out of state. The irony, Bryson, is if they were to make a deep run, they might actually be shipped out of state if they improve the resume a little bit. I think they're going to end up in Florida. I think they're long overdue to play in Gainesville. They've been playing in Tallahassee a lot. That's not to say that it couldn't happen, but I actually believe that in a lot of ways, if UCF makes a deep run here, I think they could end up being in Gainesville or out of state as a strong 2 seed in the tournament.
From what you've seen from this team this season, we know this team is a young squad. We're already coming off of a young women's tennis squad making to the second round of the NCAA tournament. But this squad here gets to go into the stadium that the College World Series is played in. So bright lights are going to be on them, on this young squad. From what you've seen from them this season, do you think they have what it takes to stand in that spotlight with all of these NCAA level teams surrounding them?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, the schedule has proven that. I think they're top 10 toughest schedule in the sport. Yeah. Now, look, you don't know how freshmen will handle this, but they have players that have played in this tournament last year. So, and maybe in a way, playing Utah on Wednesday versus waiting until Thursday may help that. Who knows? We'll find out. But I think they're prepared to handle it, and I think they'll be ready to play. It's just a question of, do you execute? Is it just not your day? Who knows? They've been on the road for over a week. They played at Kansas, and then they bust to Oklahoma City. So we'll see how that goes. But I think I get the sense they're ready. But, so is everybody else. The uniqueness of conference tournaments is you're 0-0. Like, if you're Utah, you got nothing to lose, right? You're going to play freely because nothing. What else, people expect them to lose. So I'm very interested to see. I think you'll get a sense of things the first couple of innings. Is UCF aggressive, coming out early, attacking, or do they fall behind early and have to mount a comeback? We'll see. Hopefully they get off to a good start.
Well, that start for people that are listening to this podcast is going on the day that it's released is going to be tonight on Wednesday, May 7th, as UCF faces Utah at 6 p.m. Eastern on ESPN+. The other times to remember for UCF's draw, should they be fortunate enough, on Thursday, May 8th, it will be 5 p.m. Central, 6 p.m. Eastern time. Again, ESPN+. That would be against Arizona if UCF wins against Utah. The semifinal would be at 6:30 p.m. on Friday, May 9th on ESPN+. And the Big 12 championship game will air at noon Eastern time on the big ESPN. ESPN there. Eric, where can the fine people find your coverage as you are live there in Oklahoma City right now?
Yeah, Eric Lopez Elo is your best place to find it. I'll be tweeting from the game. I'll be writing a lot of stuff too, because I'm wearing the D1 softball hat, so we got a lot of coverage this week from the D1 softball hat. I'm going to be doing social interviews. I'm going to be covering every Big 12 tournament game, so you'll be able to keep track of that. But certainly, I'll be at the UCF game, obviously, and with Bryson's help, you will be covering that from the Banneret standpoint as well with post-game coverage. Hope to have post-game video pressers as well, and on the night shift, and we'll keep you company and then get you all the way to the regional. So that's going to be fun. I can't wait. It's a little misty, a little colder than I thought, Bryce. It's around 58 degrees. I didn't bring long sleeves. Hopefully it warms up, but it is what it is. But I can't wait to be here. I think there's hopefully some good Knight fans out here, and let's hope they may keep making more history and surprising, and see what happens.
All right, Eric. Well, thank you so much for being out there and getting a chance to talk to us. I know you're a busy guy right now. I know you have a lot of other stuff you want to get to in Oklahoma City. That's not just softball related. Of course, this is your second trip there. How is it? You just got in today, I believe. Yeah,
I flew in Tuesday. It was well planned. I got some local establishment food, courtesy of our friend Jake's recommendation. So I've got a nice hotel watching hockey and softball and basketball. Life's not bad. Can't wait for seeing some softball in person. By the way, it'll be Pete Sousa, Kat Osterman on the call on ESPN Plus. Be on the lookout for that broadcast. And I think the championship game will be Eric Freed, Danielle Laurie, Madison Shipman. Pretty good. Like I said, I'll have some post-game content throughout the Big 12 tournament. But, yeah, it's fun, man. I like covering sporting events. This is fun. I know you got to cover a historic one last weekend with the men's tennis getting to their first Sweet 16, Bryson. Hopefully I get to cover some history this weekend. We'll see how this week. We'll see how it goes.
Absolutely. Once again, UCF Utah gets underway tonight. If you're listening to this on release day, Wednesday, May 7th at 6 p.m. Eastern on ESPN+.
By the way, and also check out KnightShift YouTube. Depending on how times and games and schedules go, me and Bryson, we may do some, recaps of what we saw here at Oklahoma City. How about that, Bryson? What do you think? Well,
hey, I mean, I'm down with it, especially if this team ends up making some history of their own.
You and I are late owls too, so you're the one person I could depend on, who I could talk to at late night, like we did a year ago when you were in the Tallahassee regionals. That's what my point of the audience. Subscribe to the YouTube channel. Because you might see some post-game thoughts after UCF games. We'll see how the games go and our schedules go. We might post some clips there as well and kind of give you some recaps as much as possible from here at Oklahoma City.
Awesome. Yeah, I do hope I get to return the favor to you from that Tallahassee show. That was really fun. All right. For Eric Lopez, I am Bryson Turner. Thank you so much for joining us for this special midweek edition of the Night Shift podcast as we previewed the Big 12 softball tournament. Eric, best of luck this weekend, and best of luck to the Knights.
All right, everybody, have fun. Let's go Knights. Charge on.
For all the latest news and analysis from every UCF sport, visit blackandgoldbanneret.com, your home for the UCF Knights on SB Nation. We bring you all the latest news and in-depth analysis from across Knight Nation, from football and hoops to golf and tennis. If you want to stay on top of all things UCF, visit blackandgoldbanneret.com, powered by SB Nation.